Now, what I like about GitHub as we go into the final tier is we actually get a price for enterprise. Which we may or may not see this in other tools that we compare and look at.
That is true. Very often, these vendors are starting to ask you to call sales when you get to the enterprise level. And to me, that means they might be willing to wheel and deal on the price, or they just want a salesperson to be able to talk to you to find out exactly what you need, and if there's any upselling that can happen, the salesperson can talk to you right then.
Yeah, and so if you're at the enterprise level, right, where you're like seriously considering it, my professional recommendation is make sure you call them all up, right? Pit them all up against each other so that you get the best bang for your buck. Because if you just call one up and you just take that for value, well, you will never know if that was a value or not. So call them all up. But we do get a $21 per user price, and so let's see what we get here. So obviously we get everything in the free, we get everything in the team, and now we start getting to some very enterprise-friendly functionalities, things that I don't think we care for so much as developers, but things that your company probably does.
Your company or organization may be very interested in these features.
Yeah. So first off, we got data residency. Because we're in the cloud and not on an on-premise version, where your data is important.
Yeah, and depending on your company, more important than not.
Yeah. True story. We not Git repository related, but it was I used to work for a company who used a cloud service provider, and it wasn't a data residency thing, but it was literally just a cloud service provider.
It was a vendor issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is, one of the customers was using our technology, and because our technology relied on a specific vendor, they're like, that customer, which happened to be our biggest customer, was like, no, we're not going to put our data onto your tools, which are then put onto that competing competitor vendor. So they made us move off of one stack and move into another stack. So again, you might have those problems or something like that. So.
Or more likely, you're a government organization or defense organization, and you need to make sure that your data doesn't leave the country boundaries that your organization lives in. So if I'm a U.S. defense integrator, I want to make sure that my data is not being stored in Russia.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. All right. Up next, we get enterprise managed users. This, again, it might be overkill if you don't have systems in place already for this, but basically you have a little bit more control over which users make it into your Git environment, right? So you don't have to manually go and provision users, right? You using a combination of both of these, users are automatically added. So again, you save some time, but you do got to have that infrastructure in place. You need to have something like M365, the login stuff.
Sure, Okta.
You gotta, Okta, yeah. So you got to have them, because if you don't have them, then there's no point in paying extra for these features. We get enterprise account centrally managed multiple organizations. So if you're a really big company, it enables you to have collaboration between multiple organizations. So if you're working with other big companies.
Yeah. Or if you just have a lot of departments or a lot of projects that you don't necessarily want them to share code with, but you want to centrally organize all those.
Or an M&A.
Yeah. Or an M&A event. Either way, if you're acquiring companies or you're selling divisions off, this is important.
Yep. Environment protection rules. When a workflow job references an environment, the job won't start until all the environment protection rules have passed. So this is our first developer-centric bonus that we get.
Yeah, this is mainly in your CD type and pipelines where you want to deploy to an environment, but you have a set of rules that the environment needs to meet before you push code out there, or you push your product out there.
Which is always very important, right? Versioning and things of that nature, super important, especially when something goes south on you, it's easier to track and figure out what happened. We also then get repository rules, which enforces branch and tag restrictions across your organization. ensuring branch and tag protection across your repositories, evaluate rules to assess impact before enforcement.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that some of that isn't in the team tier, and I bet you parts of that is. It's just not called out as a marketing feature here.
You also get Autolog API. So as a GitHub Enterprise Cloud Organization administrator, you can now access log events using our GraphQL API and monitor activity in your organization. This is interesting. I've seen Atlassian start to do this with GraphQL. I'm not too well versed with GraphQL, but I'm assuming
It
it
seems
just
to
helps
be
you.
the future with everything. Yeah. Everyone's jumping towards it.
Yeah. SOC 1, SOC 2. So this is all cybersecurity type of things, right? So making sure that your data, because remember, you don't own your data, right? It's somewhere else, but you are still responsible for your data, right? So if you're an enterprise, especially in a regulated industry, and you need to show your internal cyber team, how are your vendors or how are our vendors protecting our data? Well, then you need this SOC 1, SOC 2 type of stuff. And the only way to get them is you pony up.
Yeah, exactly.
We got the FedRAMP. So this is important for, Sean mentioned it
For
earlier, right?
our public sector friends that have to be on a government cloud.
Yep.
So FedRAMP is very important. It makes the purchasing go smoother. I'm not going to say purchasing is ever smooth, but it's smoother for public sector vertical if your product is FedRAMPed.
Yeah.
And then there's
In public
different.
sector, yeah. And if you're not in the public sector, then you
You don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
If you're
care.
not in the public sector, you don't have to run in a government cloud. You don't care about FedRAMP.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are in that and that do have to worry about it. And there's different tiers. And
Different tiers at FedRAMP, right?
yeah, at FedRAMP. So and they typically match with what level of security that particular project is at, whether it's secret, top secret, whether which end customer. Is it DoD? Is it one of the other 3-letter acronyms? So there's a little too much in there to pull back.
Yep.
So, but it's good that it's on there.
Yeah. We then get single sign-on, which is kind of complements the provisioning from before. We get advanced auditing, so you can review actions performed by members of your org. So if somebody's gonna go rogue on you, you're gonna be able to figure out they're going rogue on you.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to do as an admin, right? It's just kind of
go
take
rogue.
a look at. No, not go rogue, but see if anyone's going rogue.
Okay.
That was interesting. If you didn't, so Apple just had something very similar to this, right? They had an engineer basically download all the repository for Vision OS, and then they went to go work at Snap.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Snapchat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those kind of things, like you want to.
Not a good thing. So we're not talking necessarily security tools today, but when we start talking, there's some that really go out of their way to make sure they in the log files to find unusual activity, and then that gets flagged, and I find it interesting to read through some of those when those tools are active at some of my customer sites to see what it's finding that user Cindy is logging in at 3:00 in the morning every day, and what's going on with that.
Oh man, that reminds me when I first learned Wireshark, and that you could look through each message and see the package, and then see the pictures or images that were part of the. I was like, oh, this is fun. You can get some people into trouble here. All right. Up next, we got GitHub Connect. Shares features and workflows between your GitHub Enterprise and GitHub Enterprise Server and your Enterprise Cloud. And so,
so the Enterprise Server is the on-prem version of GitHub. So
that's what I figured. And so Atlassian's doing something very similar to this as well, right? Where data centers basically dead on the Atlassian side, but surprisingly they introduced a way to connect so that their AI can go in and grab data from the server.
Well, this is more of a GitHub session, but to talk Atlassian, because we keep comparing everything to Atlassian, they are the bigger brother in the three of these tools.
You think Atlassian's bigger than GitHub?
age-wise.
Age-wise, yeah.
They are definitely not as bloated. But age-wise, they've been around a bit more. So it makes sense that we keep comparing things to them.
That, and I spent my entire life in Atlassian. So
yeah, you're definitely Atlassian focused. However, you definitely have a cloud bias. I would say that the vast majority of our Atlassian customers are still on data center.
I do have I just have too many scars from being on the server and data center versions of these tools that I just never want to be a sysadmin ever in my life.
Yeah, it's definitely more hands-on, roll up your sleeve type troubleshooting when you're on-prem than when you're on cloud, because a lot of that stuff is abstracted from you in the cloud that you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But
All right.
anyway, this is GitHub.
We got 50,000, which equates to 1,600.
Quite a jump.
Yeah. But is it really though? Because at the enterprise, you no longer have a dozen teams. You have 2, 3, 4, 500 developers.
Mm-hmm.
And so if each one's running a 30-minute job.
Yeah. It depends on how you configure this. So if we assume that everyone is always going to do stuff by doing the builds in the cloud, then these numbers matter a lot. Yeah. If you're not doing your builds in the cloud, if your GitHub Actions is calling out something that's either on your own cloud infrastructure, not using GitHub's cloud, or it's coming down to an on-prem service. So if your GitHub action fires something off on your own container in your own environment, these hours don't count against you. They only count against you if you're using the GitHub servers to run your build.
Convenience of being in their convenient environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, that's going to be a huge contributing factor, right? Do you already have that infrastructure set up? Because it's not trivial, right? You don't just wake up and have, hey, I have my own servers here with my own deployments and stuff. Like, it takes some effort, but you pay for that convenience of not having to do all that setup.
Yeah.
And then finally, we got 50 gigabytes of package. So at 5 megabytes each, you're gonna have quite a bit. And then finally,
but yeah, go back to your point. When you're at this level, 50 gigabytes is nothing.
Yeah. And then finally, we get premium support with 30-minute SLA on urgent tickets and a 24/7 web and phone support. And I love how you don't get to determine what urgent means.
Oh, I think that's a pattern we'll find with most of these vendors, that they're defining what urgent means.
Yeah. And I've had Atlassian yell at me because I put something as urgent, and they're like, "This isn't urgent." I'm like, "Well, it's urgent to me."
Yeah, I think we've all been in that. So interesting that they kind of left out some features that I would have put into the enterprise that I know are in the enterprise, but they're not necessarily calling them out.
Like LFS?
Yeah, well, yeah. Now they're saying that these are additional add-ons, and so the other one, so code spaces was one, but we did talk about code spaces.
You would think you'd get more, though.
Yeah,
I feel like you would get more.
Yeah. So that must be additional code spaces that they're doing down here. But the other one that is missing is they have a kind of a Jira Lite in the free tier. But at the enterprise, there's more program management features that you typically would find in Jira available at the enterprise level, and they don't really call that out here.
Yeah, I find this interesting. The AI stuff kind of on the side.
AI is a huge thing, and Copilot, developed by the same people at GitHub. Not necessarily part of the enterprise. It's definitely a paid add-on.
Right. And so you now have to take that price of $20 for your enterprise and then add an extra $40.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're up to $60. So this is where, again, when you're talking to those sales reps, this is where maybe you can combine a couple of these different pricings, right, for different things that are important for you, right? Because maybe you do care about Git LFS, large file storage, and you fold that price in as well, assuming they charge you for that.
Yeah, some of these add-ons are free, some of them are not free. I don't know if it doesn't look like they've put them in any particular category or sorted them in any particular way. The other way to buy this, and this will be similar for all the vendors that we talk to, is to talk to a business partner. A number of partners that you can reach out to in your geographical area that can help you purchase this and possibly get discounts.